Wizard FBI.
Yeah, the WBI, Wizarding Bureau of Investigation.
Yes.
And you have your little team that gets sent out to take care of magical phenomena happening around the continent.
Or you're all Wizard Party because you're so intelligent. You could be the Wizard Illuminati on a quest for world domination. And I think one of the cool things right off the bat with just the Wizard concept is that intelligence is front and center, preparation is front and center. I really think that All Wizard Party is a great player-driven campaign because when you're all wizards, it's this team of mad arcanists going to do. You could even be a research team. Like, you could completely just play it as that Lovecraftian research expedition that is going to the North Pole, and all the arcanists are going to do something very foolish.
And of course,
Oh, sure, I haven't done the arcade yet.
Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you guys everything that I know about team building, so that way we can give you guys a nice foundation for how to build teams in Honkai Star Rail. So we're going to be talking about a lot of topics in this video, starting with the free-to-play and early game progression in terms of team building, and then who I actually think is completely safe to raise from an early to mid-game progression perspective. Then I'll be talking about why it's important to focus on weaknesses, and finally how to take into consideration survivability. After that, we'll talk about skill point management, positioning, and finally leveling up your team. So buckle up because we've got a lot to talk about. So I'm going to start by talking about the early game. So every player in this game is going to get 8 completely free characters, with the first one being the Trailblazer, or the main character, Dan Hung, Martin, and then Asta. And then after that we will be getting Serval, Herta, Natasha, and Ching Chen. So me personally, at least eventually, I'm going to be bringing most, if not all,
You have to see the world for yourself to appreciate how cute.
out of 30. One of the main reasons is so that you can get this Ascension reward, which is 1 free pull by ascending them to level 20 out of 30. Starting off though...
What? Okay. I fell asleep early, which is why I woke up early. I haven't pooped yet today, so I don't know. I guess I'll hold off for now.
Something on your mind again? Let's work through it together. 2 heads are better than 1.
You will want to level up your Trailblazer or the MC, and don't hesitate on bringing this character up to the level cap as much as you possibly can. And the reason for this is because MC has 2 elements. The physical element, which is the element that you start with, and the preservation element. And you will really want the preservation Trailblazer later, and the levels that you invest into your Trailblazer character will cross over into the other element. However, do keep in mind that both the traces here, which are the talents, as well as the eidolons, do not cross over between the 2 elements. Now, the second character that I recommend pretty much every player in this game
Let's go out and play!
is Natasha. And Natasha is going to be extremely good, at least for the first as far as I can see, 6 weeks of this game's release, because she is the only completely free-to-play healer.
The
in this
campaign
game.
begins.
Unless, of course, you manage to get by Lou, but the chances of that are not only low, but it's also great to actually have 2 healers on your account. She will be a character that you will almost certainly run in one side of your Forgotten Hall teams. Now, after that, you're probably wondering, who else should I invest into? I personally recommend building the following elements of characters.
I promise to
fire
keep you
characters, 1 physical DPS, and 1 lightning DPS. So let's talk about the fire characters first. Since pretty much everyone is going to be building the fire trailblazer, you have 1 of the 2 fire characters covered. And the other fire character can honestly be any of the other 3. There are just so many enemies in the Forgotten Hall up to level 15 where you will absolutely need to break a lot of fire. Now, physical is where it gets a little bit tricky, because Natasha on her own isn't really enough to break enemies' toughness gauges. I highly recommend not only building Natasha, but also a physical DPS, whether that's Sushang or Clara, if you're lucky enough to get her. Both of these characters are going to hugely elevate your account and make Forgotten Halls 11 through 15 much, much easier. Now, if you aren't able to get either Sushang or Clara, honestly don't worry too much about it, because you might struggle a little bit here and there in a couple of the Forgotten Hall memory stages, but ultimately you can always just eventually
I hear you've got a job for me.
and crush it just based on a level difference. And depending on what other 5-star characters you end up getting, like for example Welt or Seal, those characters will also allow you to
Sailor.
some of the harder stages even without physical DPS. Now the next element I highly recommend is 1 from the lightning element. Now we all get Serval for free, and Serval is a perfectly reasonable choice for this, and we are all able to access Arlen as well. He will also be a great option. If you do get Tinyuan, do keep in mind that she doesn't really have enough breaking power for your lightning breaking needs. Now do keep in mind that Jing Yuan is coming up next. Well, he's just going to absolutely dominate the lightning DPS category for a while. If you're holding out for him, you can consider waiting on building either Serval or Arlen. These 3 elements actually happen to perfectly split up to both sides of the Forgotten Halls 11 through 15, which is when things get a lot more difficult, because you actually need 2 teams to deal with instead of just 1 team like Forgotten Hall 10.
Oh, how exciting!
So next I want to talk about why it's important to actually focus on enemy weaknesses. Let's take a character that does 1000 base damage as an example. So against a neutral enemy, this character will do 800 damage to that enemy thanks to the 20% resistance that they have to all elements that they're not weak to. Versus a weak enemy, they will have 0% resistance to that element, and therefore they will actually do 1000 damage to an enemy with a weakness. And finally, if you manage to break that enemy's toughness gauge and they are in the broken state, there's a toughness multiplier that goes from 90% to 100%, which leads to you actually doing 1,111 damage. So
We can do this!
1,111 to 800 damage, we can see that we are doing 38.8% more damage to a weakness broken enemy in comparison to just using a neutral element against that enemy. Breaking enemies also does a lot of the break type damage, and physical, for example, does the most break type damage, followed by fire.
What's happening?
Elements, and that damage, especially in the early to mid game, makes up a large
I promise to
portion of
keep
the
you
amount of
safe.
damage that you actually do to enemies. Now, the next topic to talk about is survivability and team archetypes. So there are 2 main team
Life goes
archetypes as of playing through what I've played through so far, and that is the first one being a DPS plus a healer, and the second main archetype of team is a DPS plus 2 shielders. And the reason for this is because you absolutely need survivability on both teams if you forgot how to run. However, any damage that you take on a team with no healer is basically permanent to that battle until
Illusion shattered!
battle.
You're exposed!
Shielders on the team is generally enough to keep you alive and on the team. Most players aren't actually going to get by loot to have 2 healers. This is why knowing these 2 team archetypes is going to be very important. So next let's talk about what's probably going to be a slightly contentious topic in the community and when it comes to theory crafting potential and stuff, but that is skill point management. Skill point management is an interesting topic because every situation is so different that it's really hard to make this your priority. However, it is definitely worth keeping in mind when building a team. So I have this chart here where I've also listed out each character's role, path, element, as well as skill point usage. And you can see how I add like a little plus or minus sign to indicate a slight tilt in one direction or the other, at least if this character is played optimally. So let's take a quick look at this team and why it works pretty well. Sushang really likes to spend a lot of skill points. Natasha generates a lot of skill points. Pella generates a lot of skill points. And Circle is a skill point neutral character. So you actually do have a bit of a surplus of skill points for this team, which allows you to heal with Natasha, spam perhaps more skills with Circle, etc., etc. So you
Shine down!
This team is balanced pretty well with
Pin them down! Go.
considering but not really building teams in Honkai Star Rail. Now this next subject is also really
Too easy.
interesting, and that is how positioning is factored into team building for your team. There are two ways to look at positioning. The first one being, do you want to improve your team's survivability, or do you actually want to improve your team's offensive output? This team here's layout is more designed for survivability, with the tanks at the edges and the DPS and supports on the side. And the reason for that is because different types of characters have different amounts of aggro. Preservation has the highest, with destruction being the second highest, and then we have abundance, harmony, and ability being third, and finally content and erudition have the lowest amount of aggro. And once we factor in things like large and skill, since we have the Trailblazer skill, then we can shift all the aggro over to the left side of this team. And what that means is that AoE abilities from the enemies that hit the main target plus the characters on the sides of that target will do a lot less damage to your team if they are hitting your Trailblazer, because there is no additional character here on this side for that AoE ability to actually hit. But what if you actually want your team to actually do more damage, funnily enough? What you can actually do is you can shift your main tank, who in this team's case is definitely the Trailblazer, and you can do a layout like this. So Fire Trailblazer is going to be taking most of the damage, especially if March 7 shields or use her skill, and therefore Hook and Tingun will now be hit by AoE abilities from the enemy that hit one to the left and one to the right. And this way, getting hit actually increases your ultimate gauge as well, so you can build up more confidence with Hook and more.
We shall prevail! Do your worst! Illusion shattered!
Wheel of Life. Time for a light show.
Position your characters on your team.
Go the ship down!
Something I want to talk about is
Torn to oblivion!
So let's take a look at
There is no escape!
enemies here on level 5.
Grant us your blessing! Yield!
Sacred name. Fortune preserve. The fuse is lit!
If you need to break them. And the reason for this is because if you're within 10 levels of your enemy, breaking them will do the usual amount of breaks that you're used to. However, at 11 levels and lower, you will break them significantly slower. I believe it's a half the range of the amount of breakage that you're able to do if you are within 10 levels of the enemy. And this doesn't even take into consideration two other huge bonuses you get from leveling, which include less damage mitigation from the enemy's defense stat, as well as higher like DOT damages and break damage from breaking the enemy's gauges. That wraps up this team building guide from Honkai Star Rail. If you would like to see more content like this, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, as that helps out this channel a ton. Also, let me know what kind of guides you would like to see from me in regards to Honkai Star Rail down in the comments below. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.
Then
Hey everyone, it's
spoilers.
Sebi. Honkai Star Rail has just released, and in this video, I'm going to give you a rundown of the kits of every Star Rail character available on launch, including your main character and 21 playable characters, some of which you get for free, some you can buy in certain shops or events, or generally just pull from the wishing banners. However, there are also characters like Kafka and Qingyan which aren't part of the launch, but will come into their own banners in the future, so those aren't included for now. If you aren't yet familiar, each Star Rail character's kit is made up of their basic attack, skill, ultimate, technique, talent, which is like an innate passive, plus bonus abilities and stat bonuses. Each character can also have more depth through certain equipment in the form of life bones and relics, team synergies, and unlocking their ID points, but for brevity, we'll keep this as a general overview of the characters. Also, thank you to Honkai Star Rail for sponsoring this video.
Time for a light show!
Of course they did.
I have the down in the description and leave a comment. With that said, here's all the launch Honkai Star Rail characters explained. Let's start with those whose path is the hunt. Now, if you don't know yet, paths are like your usual RPG classes, and they're a huge part of what determines a unit's role in your team. So for the
Illusion
hunt,
shattered.
are DPS units that specialize in dealing
Pin them
massive
down.
target damage. You can imagine they shine against the boss
Fire
unit, but
hazard.
don't underestimate how they can still efficiently pick off enemies one by one, especially with speed effects. Anyway, let's check out our roster. Starting with Wind user Dan Heng, our deadpan companion. Both his skill and ultimate focus on dealing single target damage, but he has ways of manipulating his own speed and his enemies. When his skill deals a critical hit, he can reduce his enemy's speed. Then, hitting a slowed enemy with his ultimate or basic attack deals more damage. Dan Heng also has a chance to increase his own speed when launching an attack. Combining these speed-related effects can enable him to attack quite frequently, thereby maximizing his damage. He also has a passive that increases the wind resistance penetration of his next attack. And if his HP is 50% or below, he's less likely to get hit by the enemy to keep the heat off his back and let him do his thing. Dan Heng becomes your default free-to-play unit for the hunt, but despite being free, he's definitely quite good as you progress through the story with the right buffs and investment. Next is Susha, a 4-star physical
Ad
unit.
Astra
Her kit's specialty revolves around triggering
Thank
the
you for
sword stance
completing
effect,
today's
which
commission.
is an additional instance of physical damage when you use your skill.
Ad
By using her
Astra-
ultimate, you can even add up to 2 more instances for her sword stance to trigger. But the best part is that her sword stance is guaranteed to trigger when the enemy is inflicted with a weakness break, which when combined with physical break can help you deal even more damage against enemies. So having a good breaking strategy will complement her playstyle. And to capitalize on this mechanic, she too gains speed buffing and turn advancing abilities for herself, which can help her get in turn sooner, have more opportunities to break, and ultimately deal more damage. She comes with a defensive ascension passive that reduces her chances of getting hit by enemies, then offensive passives for advancing her turn and increasing her sword stance damage. Perhaps the most memorable thing about Sushang is the giant chicken her ult animation unleashes. Overall, using her speed, advancing, and sword stance mechanics well can make her into a formidable multi-hitting single-target DPS. Yan Qing is the standard banner 5-star hunt character using the ice element. His special state is called the Soul Steel Sync state that gets activated by his skill and comes with multiple effects. First, it decreases the chances of him getting attacked by an enemy. Second, he buffs his own crit rate and crit damage stats. Third, after he hits an enemy, he gets a chance to deal a follow-up attack and freeze enemies. And fourth, when using his ultimate, which increases his crit rate and deals huge ice damage on a single enemy, the Soul Steel state gives him a further crit damage boost. He has additional passives that enhance his damage capabilities, like dealing extra ice damage to enemies that are weak against ice and increasing his speed when a crit hit is triggered. Yanqing is pretty much as good as he sounds as a deadly single-target DPS that can deal a lot of huge crit damage numbers, especially when paired with the right supports. Last on this list is Zila, who is the first featured 5-star unlimited banner. Her element is Quantum, and since users of that element are quite limited when paired with the right supports. Last on this list is Zila, who is the first featured
Okay, that's a
5-star
good enough
unlimited
pronunciation.
banner. Her element is Quantum, and since users of that element are quite limited at the moment, it helps distinguish her. Like her other peers from the hunt, she buffs her own speed and deals big single-target damage. But her main mechanics that make her powerful are her buffed state, which gives her a huge damage boost, and the ability to gain an extra turn after defeating an enemy. This ability
Motion to compel.
buffs turn advancements from her passives and exerting
No
her
touching.
ultimate. It results in an insanely vicious combo of Sealant taking out multiple enemies consecutively. So even though the hunt units are supposedly single-target focused, Seela can be extra effective against enemy mobs due to her ability to effectively streak her attacks.
Incinerate!
Even makes her undetectable by enemies for a short while, then immediately puts her in her buff state if she triggers combat. Suffice to say, she's very impressive and makes for a stellar first level 5-star. As you probably gleaned from this path category, the Hunter BDSs are best
Motion to compel.
single target abilities by maximizing speed buffs and giving in as many turns as possible. So combining them with movement and movements which can complement that playstyle will make her fast in various battles. The next BDS category is the path erudition. If self-hunt units are focused on single target damage, erudition units meanwhile specialize in multi-target damage. Starting off is our lightning user and rockstar Serval, and you can get it for free from the pre-registration reward. Her kit revolves around shocking enemies a lot. Her skill inflicts shock on enemies, which means they receive lightning damage over time. Her passive deals further lightning damage to shocking enemies, then her ult deals damage and extends the shock status. Truly a shocking experience. Serval is one of the most straightforward and easiest to use erudition units who isn't really tied to certain conditions, and is definitely a solid choice in the game so far.
Next up,
Usually
access
it's
denied.
available for free and has a mahjong theme design. Her element is quantum, one of 2 quantum users along with Seal, which makes her useful in covering that weakness. However, her kit revolves around
Motion to
the
compel.
Basically, she draws a new tile during each ally's turns, plus 4 via her technique and her skill. And you can keep using her skill to draw tiles, but at the cost of a skill point each time. Once she achieves 4 tiles on the skill suit, she gets an enhanced basic attack that will multi-target. It takes out a big population and leads with both
Incinerate!
the march more of the time. She comes with very interesting design and playstyle, but the randomness factor of the kit may take some getting used to. Then we have Berta, who comes free from progressing through the simulated universe. Her element is ice, and she has effects that depend whether enemies' HP are above or below 50%. If her target enemy's HP is above 50%, her skill damage increases. If an ally hits an enemy so its HP falls below 50%, Berta launches a follow-up attack against all the enemies. Her ultimate also deals ice damage against all enemies, and she has an innate additional resistance to crowd control effects. Berta can be good against enemy waves with lots of small-time critters, like when you're farming materials, thanks to her HP-based damage increase and follow-up attack mechanics, which
Weather
can
is
prompt quite
lovely
often. Last is Himiko, a standard 5-star end of fire user. As is natural to her path, she deals a bunch of AoE fire damage with an ultimate that even launches an attack from the sky. But she has a follow-up attack mechanic that lets her get in a lot of extra damage. Whenever she or an ally inflicts weakness break on an enemy, Himiko gets a charge stack. At 3 charge stacks, she does a multi-target follow-up attack. Himiko shines in situations where you can rapidly break enemy toughness bars throughout your turn, and Himiko shaves down the HP of those vulnerable enemies through an Ascension passive. Himiko also has a chance of inflicting burn on enemies, turning into additional fire damage over time. 3 out of 4 of the currently available erudition characters are obtainable for free, so at least everyone has an initial selection, and they can be really helpful with farming materials. Jingyuan, who will be on the second limited banner of the launch version, is also at the path erudition, but I'll likely discuss him in a later video. The final damage-based class is the Destruction
easy.
class. The main difference between
There
the
is no
two
escape.
classes is that they don't have the survival or tanking abilities that Destruction units
Time
do,
for a
which
light
sets
show.
it apart. Destruction units also have a higher than usual chance of getting targeted by enemies. The first is none other than the main character, or MC. MC gains different classes.
Here come the fireworks!
But you start as a physical destruction.
Shine
unit.
down.
Physical MC
You.
comes with a very simple kit of damage.
Now you
damage,
shall
and
perish.
more damage. All done with a baseball bat, by the way. Their skill is multi-target, but their ult has a single target or a multi-target version.
Illusion shattered.
Base comes through
Wheel
their
of
speed,
life.
which heals all allies based on MC's maximum
Do your
speed,
worst.
plus that boost of HP, defense, and attack in their traces. You'll probably move on from physical MC when you get better units or unlock other paths and elements, but regardless, they're a solid starter to get you some star rails for the game. Next is Hook.
Hear my prayer.
Hook's
Flee.
skill and ult are both single target damage, but upon using her ult, it enhances her next skill into a PvP attack. She also uses burn on enemies either by using her skill or her technique to trigger a battle. When she hits burn enemies, she deals additional damage and regenerates a bit of energy. To make her tougher, her
You're
ascension passive
ghost.
lets herself heal whenever she hits an enemy already afflicted with burn, and she gains an additional resistance to crowd control effects. With her burn effects and survival utility, she can continuously whittle down enemy HP while tanking some damage. Then we have Arlen, a lightning character. Arlen's skill is single target damage, but instead of consuming a skill point, it consumes part of his own HP. What's interesting is that his passive boosts his damage the lower his health is. That's why reducing his HP and keeping him at low enough health presents a risk-reward playstyle. To complement his single target skill, Arlen's ult deals lightning damage to a target and their adjacent enemies. Like Hook, Arlen also gains an early ascension passive that allows him to self-heal, in his case, whenever he defeats an enemy. More so, his later ascension passives give him additional resistance to damage over time effects, and if he enters battle with 50% HP or lower, he gets a barrier to nullify one attack. Through these effects, Arlen can help sustain his own health and stay within low enough HP for that sweet damage boost. The 5-star standard
for
banner
now,
destruction
but
unit
friends
available
are
upon
forever.
launch is Clara, who's a physical unit. Clara's kit revolves around retaliating against enemies who hit her, using counterattacks by her companion Svarog, and reducing the damage she takes. Under the effect of her ult, Clara taunts enemies towards her, while Svarog extends his protection to Clara's allies by counterattacking when one of them gets hit. Clara can carry her team pretty well in terms of damage, and if you can aggro enemies towards hitting her, she can keep dealing counterattack combos. Svarog's damage reduction helps keep her alive through this, and she has ascension passives that give her a chance to remove debuffs and an additional resistance to crowd control effects. So that rounds up our DPS classes. Of course, they still very much need to stay alive, so the next two paths should be able to help with that. Preservation is the shielding and defense-oriented path, specializing in protecting your teammates from harm. First is our #1 cheerleader, March 7th. March is a starter ice unit whose skill applies a shield to an ally, and the shield's health scales on her defense stat. If the shielded ally's HP is at 30% or above, they gain a higher chance of getting hit by an enemy. And when an enemy hits the shielded ally, March actually launches a counterattack on that enemy. Her ultimate also has
Make
Make yourselves
at home.
Frozen on enemies for
Stand
one
with
turn,
me.
which helps keep your team
Lightning
safe from damage.
terrified.
So she has a way of mixing defense with offense. With her essential passive, she has the ability to remove one
Germinate.
debuff when you shield an ally
Game's
with her
up.
skill, along with
Game's
shield
over.
uptime,
Quiet
and
now.
an increased
Busted.
chance to freeze your enemies with her ult. Feel free, her support utilities shouldn't
The
be
Temple of
underestimated.
Wisdom.
Jafard, on the other hand, is a standard 5-star character
Sorry.
that also has the
For the trouble.
One main difference is that Jafard's shielding utility is tied to his ultimate, and it doesn't just shield
Shatter.
one unit, but rather your entire team. Because of that, a challenge users may
Quiet
face
now.
is getting Jafard's
Let's make her
ultimate
little.
consistently enough, which can be
Spring
remedied through
forth.
different equipment, effects, and
Here
magic
comes the
abilities
catch.
to rack up energy. At least he has these techniques that can apply shields to allies at the start of the battle. Aside from
Stand with
shielding,
me.
Jafar has a
Take
chance to
care of
remove frozen on
the
enemies
king.
with skill for crowd control. His ascension passive makes him more likely to get targeted by enemies, and if he ever falls to 0 HP, he has the ability to revive once per battle, making him quite a tough tank. He's really a great all-rounder for those defensive utilities. There is another preservation character, the Fire MC, but you only get them towards the end of the first story arc. Fire MC's offensive features use magma will stacks, which they can gain by getting hit by enemies, using their skill or using a basic attack. If you have enough magma will stacks, you can consume them to deal an enhanced basic attack, which deals higher damage to multiple enemies. Their skill also taunts enemies towards them for the
Oh,
entire
you're calling
turn,
for me?
while increasing
Coming.
their damage reduction. And
We
their
can do
ultimate
this.
deals damage to all enemies and also automatically enhances their basic attack. On top of all of that, Fire MC can give all allies a thin shield for additional team-wide defensive utility. This MC form has an interesting
I'll take good
combination
care
of
of
offensive
everyone.
and defensive tactics, and could be a fun preservation fire unit to diversify your roster. Another path that focuses on team survival is the Abundance path, basically the healer class. Natasha is our free physical healer. Her skill heals a single target upon casting and over time, while her ultimate is a party-wide healing effect. Once you level her up enough, she unlocks the ability to remove one debuff from an ally she heals with her skill, which improves her support role. Don't underestimate Natasha as a free unit because she's a very capable healer that you can rely on.
The second abundance character is Bailu, who is a 5-star standard character of the lightning element. In terms of healing utility, she's basically an improved Natasha. Her skill can heal multiple allies, and her ultimate heals your entire party, though some added special effects make her a cut above. First, she can apply the Invigorated buff on allies, which heals them when they get hit and reduces the damage they take, further ensuring your teammates stay alive. Second, if ever someone gets knocked out, Bailu can revive and heal them immediately, which can trigger once per battle. So if you want a healer, your choices are pretty clear-cut, with Natasha as a really good free-to-play option, or Bailu as an improved 5-star option should you get her. Next is the Harmony Path, whose units buff your allies to further increase your damage output. First up is Asta, a fire unit. She can collect charging stacks by hitting enemies, which increases your entire team's attack based on how many different enemies you hit and if they have a fire weakness. This especially synergizes with her skill, which can deal 5 random hits of fire damage, or her technique, which allows her to initiate a battle and immediately deal damage to all enemies. Additionally, using her
Dance with the waves!
buff her allies, so not only can she move their damage, she can also help them move faster. At higher levels, upon unlocking her future passives, she has a chance to burn enemies with her basic attack, and she increases your allies' fire damage, which gives her more synergy in fire-based teams. Passives are really good quantified buffer and even better utilized if you have multiple lightning leaders in the team. Next, Tingyun is a lightning unit. What makes her notably different from Asta's party buff is that her skill, which grants the benediction buff, can only affect one ally at a time. This buff grants that ally additional attack based on Tingyun's own attack, and they're able to deal additional lightning damage when they hit enemies. Tingyun's ultimate also targets an ally to regenerate 50 energy and increase their damage. Combining all these buffing abilities makes her an incredibly useful support to pair with team carries. You can eventually unlock her passives where she can increase her own speed and regenerate her own energy per turn, which are very nice quality of life improvements for her. Again, the main consideration between these two is that Tingyun's buffs are single target while Asta's buffs are party-wide, but in those regards they are both very good in their designated buffer roles. Last in this category is Wind User Bronya, a standard 5-star, who's easily one of the best characters available right now. Her skill targets an ally to remove a debuff, buff their turn up to take immediate action, and gives them a damage bonus. Then with her ult, she gives a party-wide buff of increasing attack and damage. Bronya has even more party-wide buffs through her passives, where she can boost your team's defense at the start of the battle to boost everyone's damage for as long as Bronya is on the field, or use her technique to boost everyone's attack at the start of the battle. All in all, since Bronya's buffs are both personally applicable and party-wide, she is an incredible support character that will likely have some good lasting power in the long run, especially as current and future units will largely appreciate all of her damage buffing capabilities. The Harmony class already has some great units to start with. Just like in Genshin, support units will be good investments in the long run. Thankfully, Asta here is already free, but I hope players get good opportunities to pick up Tingyun and Bronya down the line as well. Playing opposite to the multi-class is Nihility, the debuffing class that inflicts all kinds of negative stats effects on your enemies. Let's start with Sample, a main character we meet early on in the story. Sample's skill is multi-target and multi-hit, but he has a chance of inflicting wind shear on opponents, causing them to take damage over time. The debuffing part of his kit is mainly via his ultimate, which increases the amount of damage over time that enemies take. His kit can be especially useful if he's paired with other damage over time based DPSs like Serval or Hook, so that both he and another character can take advantage of his debuff effect, thereby creating stronger damage over time teams. Next is Pella. First, her skill deals damage and removes an enemy buff. This is a situational perk since not every enemy you encounter will actually gain buffs. Second, and more importantly, is her ability to reduce all your enemies' defense, which can be done either by using her ultimate or by triggering a battle with her technique enabled. This debuff is quite valuable and unique to her at the
Don't
moment,
tell me
so
they did it
really
again.
encourages high uptime on her ultimate. Reducing an enemy's defense is a really good way to increase
It's
the
time
damage
to pull
dealt to
the
them,
trigger.
especially combined with other damage-increasing or resistance-related effects. Her Ascension passives help round out her support capabilities by increasing
me luck.
allies' effect hit rate, which means they're more likely to inflict their respective debuffs on enemies. Last is Grandpa Welt, who comes with the imaginary element, making him quite a unique catch at the start of the game that brings in very valuable debuffs, slowing enemies down and imprisoning them. As he deals imaginary damage through his skill, there's a chance for him to reduce enemy speed. By using his ultimate or technique, he can imprison enemies, which delays their actions and reduces their speed. He also has an ascension passive that increases the damage an enemy receives upon using his ultimate. Slowing and imprisoning enemies down can be both a defensive and offensive utility. Defensive, since it means enemies will be hitting you less, and offensive, since you can
Make yourself at home.
in between
Gotcha.
Our
bond is strong.
Can make for a fun team where enemies have a hard
Game's
time
up.
getting their
Fun's
turns in
over.
until they're
I
already
see everything.
dead. But in general, he can be a very useful
Let the
unit to
show
help control
begin.
full battle and action turns in your favor.
Busted.
And the zip for
A minute to
our
limit.
character around
Yeah.
I'm personally excited to see how much potential each of these units
Grow,
can
grow,
bring in
grow.
the long run. Let me know in the comments which character has piqued your interest and why. If you're new to my channel, I mostly make Genshin Impact guides, but look out for some upcoming Star Rail content too. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all soon. Take care!
Hey guys, welcome back to another Honkai Star Rail video. Now that the game has been officially released, I wanted to begin by
Welcome
making
back.
a beginner's guide for players who are just starting out. Obviously, like for any brand new game, everyone and their mother is making content like this, but if this is the first beginner's guide you're watching, then I'd like to say welcome, and I hope this is insightful to those who need it and entertaining to those who want it. What I'm going to be doing is giving you an overall understanding of the game's systems, mechanics, and gameplay, as well as offering a few tips and things you should be aware of, especially during the early stages of the game to maximize your experience. If you need
The Temple of Wisdom.
switches to Genshin and Star Rail, so if you're not a Genshin player, then I recommend you check out the video after watching this cutscene.
Things are about to get dicey.
Let's dance.
Out of my way!
I have plans to make more in-depth guides on the system for reviews, addition of video with about
I'll protect us. I see everything.
Our bond is strong.
Oh, hi. Committed to memory. This may hurt a little.
Gotcha.
Being attacked by them. The battle piece begins at neutral, or with one side having a first striking advantage, not unlike how other RPGs allow first hits, such as Paper Mario. While in battle, you pilot a team of up to 4 characters versus the enemy team, and the way turn order is decided mainly comes down to each unit's speed stat. Fast units get to move first, and occasionally be able to act multiple times before someone else does. When a player's turn starts, they get to choose 2 of 3 commands: basic attack, skill, or ultimate. Basic attacks generate skill points, which are consumed by using skills. You can hold up to a maximum of 5 at a time. To use the character's ultimate, you have to generate energy, which can be accumulated through a variety of ways, most of them pertaining to dealing damage. These ultimates can be activated during any one of your party members' turns, and do not constitute using up a turn. As for enemies, they have 2 common stats of interest: their health bar behaving like a traditional health bar, and a toughness meter. The toughness meter can only be damaged by attacks of the elements that the enemy is weak to, indicated above them. If their toughness bar gets reduced to 0, they get inflicted with what is called a weakness break, causing them to take additional damage and a debuff based on the element of the attack that dealt the breaking shot. With this in mind, there are 7 elements in the game: physical, fire, ice, lightning, wind, quantum, and imaginary, and the weakness break for each one goes as follows. Physical, fire, lightning, and wind apply damage over time to a weakened enemy, while ice does the same, as well as freeze them, blocking them out of 1 or more turns. Quantum and imaginary are a bit different. The former pushes the enemy back in turn order while dealing quantum damage over time, while imaginary pushes the enemy back in turn order and lowers their speed. Broken enemies have to spend 1 turn or more recovering their toughness, so with proper timing, you can cancel out an opponent's turn. Alongside the 7 elements, characters are divided into 7 different classes, known as paths. Destruction units are primarily focused on dealing damage overall, making them effective for general combat. Hunt units are single-target specialists, naturally excelling at fighting isolated targets such as bosses. Erudition units are the inverse, effective at clearing large clusters of enemies or waves of enemies. Harmony units are offensive and utility-oriented supports. They can augment their party members through buffs that increase damage, or even move them up in turn order to let them attack soon. Utility units are this game's debuffers, reducing enemy effectiveness to give your team an advantage. Preservation units are this game's tanks and defensive supports, which will no doubt be of great use in battles where you can expect to sustain heavy damage. And finally, abundance units are healers, self-explanatory. Supposedly, the game has more paths than just those 7, but currently there are no playable characters attached to them. These systems comprise Honkai Star Rail's combat system, placing great emphasis on party compositions, attack rotations, and game knowledge. Suffice to say, for all you Genshin players out there, a further degree of strategy is needed to play this game's content efficiently, as opposed to Genshin, where you can essentially brute force your way through everything. I definitely plan to make a more in-depth guide on proper team building, since this game has a lot you have to think about. So, having established the game's combat, let's move on to the characters. Honkai Star Rail's character progression is almost identical to Genshin Impact's, but with a few modifications. Every character has a list of stats. HP, attack, defense, and speed are easy to understand. Crit rating for damage determine how often you critically strike and how much bonus damage you deal from each. Rate effect measures the strength of the unit's weakness break and how long it takes for enemies to recover from it. Healing Boost determines how much the character's healing abilities regenerate if applicable. Energy Restoration is how fast they find their ultimate ability. Effective rate and effect resistance determine how likely you are to apply status effects and debuffs to enemies, and how unlikely it is for the inverse. Elemental damage and rest boost are the same but for elemental damage. Characters can progress through a number of ways. The first is obviously their level. The most efficient way to level up is to use character XP materials, which can be attained by playing the game, farming for them, or buying them in the shop. Every so often, you'll reach their current level cap, requiring you to spend essential materials to continue leveling them further. Although bear in mind, you have to be a certain trailblaze level, also known as account rank, or this game's equivalent of adventure rank for you Genshin players. Ascending a character also unlocks more traces. Traces make up Star Rail's skill tree. Just as you would spend materials to ascend a character, leveling up traces demands materials that can also be obtained through the same ways you would get character ascension and experience materials. Each character has 5 different types of traces: basic attack, skill, ultimate, talent, and technique. Leveling up the first 3 increases their effects in combat, while leveling up talent traces passively awards improvements to a unit's battling capabilities. Techniques, on the other hand, are overworld abilities. Some units have an offensive technique that makes your first strikes more deadly, others have supportive techniques. For example, you can have a technique that heals you out of combat, or a technique that makes you invisible to enemy detection. Moving on though, up next are Eidolons. Eidolons expand on a character's abilities by obtaining additional copies of them, so they're exactly identical to Constellations in Genshin, or they're synonymous with limit breaks in other gacha games with a similar mechanic. Typically this entails pulling for multiple of them, and therefore necessitates premium currency. So those are all the character-centric stuff. Now let's go to their equipment, starting with light cones. Light cones are this game's weapons, each of them providing health, attack, defense, and a passive bonus. Light cones are also upgradable and ascendable in the same fashion as characters. Their passives can also be enhanced further by acquiring duplicate copies and superimposing them on top of one another. While they all appear to look the same visually, light cones can only be equipped by members of their corresponding paths. For instance, some light cones may only be equipable by destruction path units or nihility units. It's important to choose the right weapon for every character, as one may make use of the light cone's passive more synergistically than another. The main way of getting more light cones, especially the better ones, is to pull them through Star Rail's gacha system, or buying them through the exchange. The other aspect of equipment are relics, which may look familiar to Genshin's artifact system. There are 6 types of relics: hands, body, feet, planar sphere, and link rope. Each relic comes with the main stat and up to 4 substats. On screen you can see the possible main stat for each type. As you upgrade a relic, you'll increase the main stat per level, and periodically obtain a new substat if you have less 4, or upgrading an existing one if you do have 4. The upgrades are entirely at random, so they're quite literally the same as Genshin's artifact system. Take that info any way you will. One more thing is that every relic belongs to a set, and by wearing other relics of that set, you can get additional bonuses on top of them. To get your hands on relics, you have to reach Trailblazer level 15 and get a decent way through the main story before you have access to them. Once you reach that point, chests and reward missions will give you a few, but you can farm them through caverns of corrosion. By studying Trailblaze power, Star Rail's version of Resident from Genshin, you'll be awarded relics. They can also be acquired through weekly bosses and synthesis, aka crafting. Once more, I'll be making more in-depth guides in separate videos, such as a more detailed light cone and relics guide. While we're on content, I should go through the various game modes and dungeons you should be aware of throughout your journey. As you play through Star Rail, you'll encounter a number of dungeons that you can enter to farm resources and materials in exchange for trail-based power to progress your account. The different stages are Calyx, Stagnant Shadow, the aforementioned Cavern of Corrosion, and Echo of War. Calyx stages are responsible for giving you credits and XP materials used to level up your characters and light costs. Depending on the day of the week, Calyx stages give materials pertaining to a specific path. So for example, on Monday and Thursday you have Better Vision and Harmony, Tuesday and Friday you have Hunt and Agility, etc. Just like how materials for weapon and talent ascension differ based on the day of the week in Genshin. 10 trail power per Calyx run. Stagnant Shadows award character ascension materials in the same fashion. 30 trail power per run. Cavern of Corrosion hooks up with relics and costs 40 power for one stage, pretty hefty. Echo of War, on the other hand, are your weekly bosses, offering relics, tracks of destiny, which are traces of big materials. I'd imagine those are exactly the same as the weekly boss drops for talent level 7 and up in Genshin, and they also give light cards. You can attempt up to 3 Echo of War runs per week, but the cool thing is that you can do the same stage all 3 times, so if you're trying to focus on a specific unit, you're not stuck to just one per week. Very convenient. One stage is 30 power. Those stages make up all your bossing and farming needs. Now let's move on to the other 2 game modes. Forgotten Hall is a turn-sensitive dungeon where you have to defeat a group of enemies as quickly as possible, upon which you'll be awarded 0 to 3 stars depending on the number of turns. Forgotten Hall is Star Rail's equivalent of Genshin's Spiral Abyss, basically in-game content. It even forces you to meet 2 parties playing floors just like how Genshin does. The hall is divided into 2 parts, Memory and Memory of Chaos. Memory remains the same, while Memory of Chaos resets every so often, where you can reattempt them for future rewards, and of course, they're naturally very difficult to clear. Tax's Forgotten Hall, you have to be Trailblazer rank 23 or higher, so it's not going to be available to you early on, and even then, you'll most likely need to get rank 50 or higher to take on endgame stuff. The same can be said for the other game mode available, Simulated Universe, which is made accessible early on in the game. You can select a team of 4 characters to venture into a roguelike dungeon and get random buffs to enhance its power the further in you go. The Simulated Universe will require its own video on account of there just being so much to talk about, but in terms of incentive, you can collect Stellar Chase and Herder Bonds. Herder Bonds can be exchanged for special items, and it's another thing you can do once you exhaust all your trail power. More activity is always nice. Now would be a good time to go over Stellar Chase. We haven't talked about the gacha system yet, so let's do that. Pulling in this game behaves exactly like Genshin. It's your primary source of units and light cones, but it's not the only source. Obtaining a 4 or 5 star unit or light cone gives you Undying Embers and Starlight, which you can then trade in at the Starlight Exchange for a variety of goodies. Here you can get credits, materials, experience, and a few other things for your convenience. Like most modern day gachas, Star Rail will have a beauty system, although at the time of recording this, the rates have not been made public. So unfortunately, I have no information on how generous or stringent the 5 stars are, but I'm praying it's not too bad. I think that about wraps up all the important systems, content, and features you want to make note of at the start of your adventure. In terms of overall progression, the game basically tells you what to do up until you complete the first area to level 6. So until that point, you should follow along with the main questline. From then on, I suggest you prioritize unlocking everything you possibly can. That includes all the game modes, opening up every dungeon access point, and advancing your Trailblazer rank. For all you Genshin players out there, progression through early game Star Rail is virtually the same as progression through early game Genshin. So to remember what you had to do there, you can also do it here. Star Rail's main storyline is relatively gentle in terms of difficulty, so you won't have to concern yourself too much with properly gearing or leveling your teams until later on. You should also try to complete the Operation Briefing as quickly as you can. It's Star Rail's equivalent of the Adventure Handbook. All those beginner quests you have to do at the beginning of the game. Regarding what to do on a daily basis, here's a laundry list of things to handle. First and foremost, be sure to do your assignments once you get them. They're consistent, albeit time-consuming to passively generate resources. Seeing as how character progression in this game is identical to Genshin, I would focus on maximum meanings levels and traces, so XP materials and credits are a good place to start. Next, you should use up your trailblazers to work to the same thing. The early game focuses on leveling up your characters and light codes. Next, you'll want to do your daily training missions, a series of random things you have to complete to get daily rewards. Next, there's the mission you can do on top of it that refreshes everything. That covers just about everything I wanted to go over. Obviously, there's a ton more things to look into, but for a beginner's guide, that should give you a decent understanding of the game's foundation. Above all else, make sure to enjoy your time. I know because it's a new game, many players are trying to go crazy on like maxing and binging everything, but I do recommend take your time and enjoy Star Rail. It's a really fun game, so be sure to see it. Hopefully this was helpful to everyone. Be sure to stay tuned for more in-depth guide videos in the coming days. I know I'm more of a game discussion channel and not really a guide one, but don't worry, provided my Star Rail videos do well enough, you can expect my normal content style for Star Rail in the near future. The game just came out after all. It would be way too early to make a wide all. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at @BarsFriend. Join my Discord server, and once again, check out my Honkai Star Rail and Genshin comparison video if you haven't yet. Well, for now, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next one. Take care.
Hey everyone, I didn't really feel like making money today, so we're going to play a rhythm game and not really know how it goes. Yeah, that's fine. Good. You like me too, or not me.
I will always seek to protect the things that are
I'm
most
not, like,
important,
super, like,
no matter what it takes,
yeah, I know.
even when it makes
You
futile.
can't go extreme. You're going to be playing on hard, which is fine. I just want to show off all my silly little songs. I love my silly little Wi-Fi girl. Yeah, we're gonna go make sure that we get conference like right on as well. Yeah. Or multiple times perhaps. Ooh, yeah. I like mostly get like a little bit of money. But 99
To the North Pole, and all the Arcanists are going to do something very foolish.
And of course, you could always just settle on the classic trope of 4 students attending wizarding school.
Yes.
So, this is ripe with ideas for a full campaign that we can play with 4 wizards.
Completely playable. I think on the assessment of, is this a cool concept? S tier. Style points, this is a winner.
I agree, although I do think that we will be able to come up with cool ideas for every single class. But let's be real, this is a trope that we've seen, this is a trope that we love. We love wizard investigators, we love wizard schools, we love guilds of wizards. Wizards working in groups is actually just something that you see a lot in different media. So why not?
It's well established and foundational. So, when we are picking our 4 wizards, what 4 subclasses are you going to choose for your all-wizard party?
So I'll be real with you. This was actually we've already been thinking on a lot of the different classes. For some reason, this one's one of the hardest because I actually think there's an opportunity to mash almost any 4 wizard subclasses together and get something interesting.
Indeed, and you really could go with an interesting thematic basis. For example, the party that is the illusionist, the enchanter, the transmuter, and maybe the conjurer is very different from the necromancer, evoker, conjurer, and the diviner.
And for my party, I went with I have to have a diviner in there. That's the must.
Yeah.
I went with Bladesinger because again we want to be good at all pillars of play, and Bladesinger is going to just help us actually dealing damage and having something on the front lines.
Totally. I think that anchoring the all-wizard party, the Diviner and the Bladesinger, which already are 2 of the strongest subclasses for the class, also fulfills many of the key party roles, because the Bladesinger is an incredible damage dealer, but in this party, the Bladesinger is going to be able to really focus on being the frontline damage dealer as well. So they can focus their build on more defensive-oriented Bladesinger, they can bring more defensive frontline type spells that are going to help their survivability, and they can feel free that they don't have to be packing all the utility that normally they would also have to bring along as the wizard. They can kind of just go full into the damage dealer, tank sort of role and live in that because they know that the rest of the party can bring the utility.
And that's actually something that I think is important about an all-wizard party as I talk about my other 2 choices, is usually if somebody at the table is playing a diviner, well, your diviner's still going to pack fireball. And like all of your other, they want their utility, they want their...
Let's be honest. In the all-wizard party, everyone still plays fireball.
Okay, fair enough, but the point I'm making is they can be much more focused.
It can be, but at the same time, not much is going to survive 4 fireballs.
Fair. Okay, fireball was a bad example.
But even just to analyze this, like, if you are in a battle, whereas all your wizards, all of them can drop fireball, that is effectively, imagine 5th level characters, okay? all of them dropping fire. That is basically Meteor Sword. That's 36d6 damage, which is only a little bit less than Meteor Sword. Of course, it's 4 saving throws, but if all the characters are doing that at the start of the battle, that could really decimate you.
Like, good luck with minions.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as minions
What?
versus a wizard party.
Come on,
And you can be
asking if they were a forest ranger. I
yes,
thought
it was 4
that.
fireballs, but it wasn't one character casting 4 fireballs. It was just each character casting 1 fireball.
These two are
Well,
literally the exact
We're
same
gonna get into
question.
some of the tricks and
God.
tactics a little bit later, but you raise a good point. The point that I'm making with the parties is when I say that I'm packing a diviner, that diviner is going to go all in on divination spells with some extra utility and things that you want to double up. Diviner, Bladesinger, for me, I want to put in an Adjurer and an Enchanter, but I will tell you, I almost feel like you could toss one of those out and throw in an Illusionist really easy.
Okay, I agree with you that the diviner is essential, because this party is going to be fragile and has to win the information game. So the diviner is really going to help ensure that they have the information that they need to, if this is the party that if they run into an anti-magic zone, they don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
And so they want to know that that's coming before they run into that. Backing up them, the Chronologist is kind of like just having a second diviner. And I think I'm really tempted with that. But you know what you really need with an all-wizard party? It's actual meat sheets. And who better to provide that than the Necromancer?
I can't argue with that. So Necromancer is such a good choice because you get your cannon fodder.
Exactly, and that's what this party needs. In difficult situations, send in the dead.
Now, here's why I want to give points to my party. Again, I think that this is a tough choice. I don't think either of us is winning over the other. I think that any 4 wizards is going to get you there.
Yeah.
But my argument is they are a pretty squishy party. The Abjurer is going to help buff. They're going to help keep people alive. They're going to help just be an extra defensive shield. So, you have your Bladesinger and your Abjurer holding up the front line, creating the wall. Then you have your Diviner, who's actually going to not only be the information gatherer, but that means that he's going to help out in exploration. Because knowing where you're going, knowing information, that helps with exploration. The Enchanter ties up our loose end of social encounters.
Yes, and I think that with my party, that is a weakness, because they're basically going to be relying on kind of mixing the dice rolls between the Chronologist and the Diviner to get through social rolls, or using magic.
What?
Yeah, and I think that an Enchanter, just my idea there is they're going to be the one to help out with all social engagement, because no wizard is really very charming, but an Enchanter can make you believe that they're charming.
Indeed, and I do think that there is something to be said for the Illusionist Enchanter. Right?
Yes.
Like, that feels like there's something chef's kiss about having both those characters in the party, and I feel like if your campaign was going to be more social, espionage, wizard Illuminati focused, maybe you would go that route. But the thing is that all the wizards can have all the spells anyways.
Right.
And I don't think that the Illusionist really is a cut above when it comes to illusion magic. The Enchanter gets some cool features, higher levels that let them target 2 enemies, but at the end of the day, an Enchanter's charm person is as good as a Diviner's charm person.
This is fair. And yeah, I guess when I imagine the team, I'm thinking of like focus points, but you are right that you can kind of divvy up, anybody can take suggestion.
There's also going to be a big overlap of intelligence-based skills here. And so I do think what you might want to do to round out the party is some characters everyone's going to want to have high constitution, high intelligence. Some will have a higher wisdom, and then there'll be the perception, insight, survival as their secondary skills. And some characters will have charisma, as a secondary, potentially. I think the wizards will be able to get away with not having strength and dexterity-based stuff.
Although I could see giving my Blade Singer dexterity as like their third tier.
Yeah. This party is going to teleport to past traps, or send a zombie to spring it.
As we move into weaknesses, I actually don't think that traps are much of an issue for this party, so they aren't really a primary weakness. We have so many spells to bypass traps, or set them up.
The bigger debate is going to be who's going to use their spell to get past it.
Yeah, I mean,
Can't I change my
beyond the
perspective?
Necromancer summoning a
There
bunch
we go.
of minions, you also have a ton of summoning spells that can be used to just put extra bodies on the board for meat shields or for traps.
That said, hit points, armor class, and saving throws are not going to be.
Yeah, which is why you do want some protective buffs. You want everybody to probably pack shield, which is why I like the Abjurer of the party, but also the Blade Singer can help out.
You're going to want to have absorb elements. You're going to want to have your counter spells. You're going to want to really make sure that you don't get hit by fire pleasure spells.
And this party doesn't have healing.
No healing at all. There's creative ways around
A
it.
shield is
This
not
definitely is a party that is going to, in general, win big. They can't really fight a war of attrition. So this party is going to want to take control of the battle, take control of the situation as soon as possible. And I definitely think with the Always a Party, you're going to see a lot of combat encounters where they don't want to, they really want to avoid taking any damage if they can. Just through the combination of battlefield control, good defensive magic. Because they got no healing. They're going to rely on potions and whatever other magic they can find. There's not a lot of healing in this group.
So they are going to be kind of your glass cannons,
Yeah.
but for that reason they want to pre-plan everything. And I mean, we have seen at our own table 2 spellcasters turn a group of giants into let's just fight one at a time with battlefield control.
Yes, like, strictly speaking, all of these wizards could just banish the entire opposition. They could just hold monster everything. It only takes one hypnotic pattern to disable entire encounters. And what happens when you have multiple walls of force? This is where that weakness turns into a strength, which we'll get into in a moment. But I do think that with this party, resource management is a puzzle and potentially a problem. Because sometimes with this party, it might be tempting to use more magic than you need to make. I think that this group has to think carefully and not use too many spells when they probably could have won it just a hand.
From playing a wizard, one thing that I know is that when you get into combat, you're wondering what's the biggest, flashiest spell I can cast. The trick is when 4 wizards get into combat, and they all blow their biggest spell slots on the biggest, flashiest spells, when really only one of them needed to, and the rest could have cantripped their way through the battle. That's a loss of resources.
Anti-magic often comes up in conversations around the all-wizard party, and the first thing that I'll say is that anti-magic is generally not prohibited in our adventures, and I do think that it tends to be a bit of a rug pull sort of thing in many adventures. You don't often see, like, this entire dungeon has no magic. Because, let's face it, so many of the classes in 5e are reliant on having magical abilities overall. If you want to have your entire dungeon coded in an anti-magic field, I guess this party just needs to get more than a dungeon.
That feels like a mean adventure to send an all-wizard party on, unless they knew about it. Like, it's like, guys, you have to go to the no magic dungeon now. And then they have to figure out what to do with that.
That, to me, if you're doing the wizard party has to deal with the no magic dungeon, that to me feels like the wizards have to figure out the way to disable whatever is creating that effect in order to enter that dungeon.
Aside from the really mean DM who throws that at the all-wizard party, I do think that there is a case where if you're low on spell slots, or your spells aren't cutting it in a social encounter or exploration, then you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah, you're
Peace
falling
and good
back on
health should be enjoyed by all.
You're reliant, but also
If I can provide everyone with a life such
we
as
want to make
this,
sure that
I will be content.
But this is a strength, because one of the really cool tactics of this party, going on with strengths and tactics, is that wizards can share their spellbooks. So each character can learn 2 different spells when they level up, and then they all sit down and have a study party together, and they all copy each other's spellbooks. So only one character needs to be the character to run a shield, and only this shield is relevant to everybody else. Only one character needs to run a counter spell, so this means that they're going to very quickly, without needing to find other wizard spellbooks, learn all the spells they need, and then be able to choose their loadouts dynamically so that there's the overlap where they need it, redundancy where you want it, and the key pieces where you need it.
I feel like this is also a party that during long rests is sitting down by the fire, all sitting around being like, if I take reverse gravity, you're going to take, like,
Prismatic
prismatic
law.
law.
A shield is not enough to protect the most important
They will
things.
have those
Yes.
discussions.
That's
They will
why
come
I
up,
must also
and
wield
like
a
we've done
spear.
videos on spell combos that you can pull off with one character and spell combos that you can pull off with two characters. With a party of 4, you can mix and match those all you want.
You can do that thing where one person puts the cloud kill down and the other captures the enemy in the wall of force with the zombies in there.
Yeah.
Right? You can do that where one player has set up the hazardous area and the other's going to use Thunder Wave or Gust of Wind or Telekinesis or Vortex Warp to move the enemies exactly
Peace
where
and
they
good
need.
health should be enjoyed
There's
by
so
all.
much
If I can provide everyone with a life
that can
such as
happen here.
this,
It is all
I will be content.
And so I think that when we actually talk about the strengths of the all-wizard party, it very much makes up for the weakness. They're going to have low hit points, but an all-caster party, once you hit level 5 and beyond, I feel like it's almost unstoppable if they get to go first in initiative. Which also their initiative might not be great, so that's one thing to consider, but
Yeah, but this is an interesting strategy here because a diviner wizard can use their order on someone else's spell. So if the diviner doesn't win initiative, the first wizard to act can bring the most important battlefield control spell, and the diviner can still support it.
make it a 19 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so but having a diviner in your party just shores up with a good battle plan. When we talk about like the finest barbarians, they're probably the ones who are like, run into battle, who cares? This is the party that never runs into battle. They meticulously plan each battle, know what spells each person should be casting in those battles. I feel like this is the group that predetermined that whoever goes first will lay down area of effect.
Yes, there's actually like a plan. There's like a multi-stage flow chart for their battle plan. They like scientifically worked it out every step of the way. Of like, if this wizard goes first, they're gonna do this. Then, like almost like chess. Like there's a certain way that chess masters play where they go, "Oh, I'm in this game," because they've memorized so many games. They know the board position. So this party of wizards, they're like, "Okay, well, the diviner's going first, so they're going to do this." Which means that if the Blade Singer's going second, they're going to do this. This is the way the battle plan proceeds like clock.
Yeah, I think when we talk about spells, and like each wizard is going to pack unique and different spells, but there's some areas that we definitely want to overlap spells.
Yeah, like Fireball.
Like Fireball. But I also think having a flock of familiars, not the spell flock of familiars, I mean
A literal flock of familiars.
all
Yes.
4 wizards pack 5
Yeah.
familiar. You're gonna have 4 familiars which can use the help action, granting you advantage on a spell attack roll,
Yeah.
anything of that sort. Or, again, if you're being meticulous and planning about it, sending your familiar in to help out the next caster land their spell, knowing who needs the familiars more.
And again, the summon spells really shine here. Because conceivably, every character could cast a summoning spell and double the force, the battlefield force.
Okay, and as we're talking about that, at higher levels, everybody can take simulacrum. Now you're doubling the amount of wizards. You have 8 wizards.
And they can all clone. Yeah, they can all clone each other. They can make their demi-plane fortress. Like, the cool thing about this party is that around mid-level, they start working together and they can build their own fortress. Like, they can set up their own teleportation circuits. They can layer on all their magical defenses. They can make their own extraplanar sanctum, where they scry
Okay,
through the multiverse,
sight reading the
see
hearing
threats,
only
and then
doesn't help.
teleport and destroy it. They might not even
Calibration
themselves.
issues,
They could
probably, I
send
guess.
their simulacrum. They could each summon a monster and send that monster to go ahead instead of them. They could find elementals and fiends and celestials to their service. They could, like, and this is where, like, the Wizard Illuminati, the Wizard Guild really forms.
This is a wild campaign idea. Like the wizards, your party stays in their demi plane and sends out alternate versions of themselves.
Eventually, they just start hiring adventurers.
It's become the DM.
Yes.
It's there's so many strengths, and once you get into high level play for wizards, I don't know what you do.
I think that with going back to like the conceptual idea of this campaign, I think that this is where you actually have to embrace the insanity of high level magic and campaign and take it to its logical conclusion. And I think that the all wizard campaign for myself, I would love to play this campaign, but make it a campaign where it is entirely driven by the players. Like, I think that this is the type of campaign where, as a dungeon master, don't worry about the multiversal threat that is going to destroy the world. Just see what these 4 wizards are going to do to change the world. And you might not even necessarily... Now, there could be... This is where could go with it. Have a rival wizard.
That was my first thought.
A rival wizard guild, wizard versus wizard. Which wizard guild will come out on top?
I also feel like this is a great party for those groups that maybe only get together every couple of weeks. So instead of a consistent plot, it's almost like they get their mission for the night.
This would be an amazing group chat party. Like, you would have so much fun with the downtime of this group.
I also imagine that you could have fun, like, once this group's set up and they're on higher level play, watching, like, they all have long lifespans. Let's just say they're all elves, or they're magic, but
exactly like
okay, so they're all clones. So they could watch the rise and fall of civilizations. They could decide whether or not they want to participate in great wars. It's like, are we going to help out with that one? And like, you could have this century-spanning campaign of this secret group of wizards who decide when to interact, and like, it's like, by the time you're in high level play, it's like, oh, a group of dragons is threatening to take over the world, and you guys want to help out. And it's like, yeah, that's just like they're singing along.
Yeah.
So,
or if the dragons are taking them, they just polymorph themselves into dragons. Be like, what up?
True poly.
Yeah. All the we didn't barely touch polymorph yet. But you could take any individual stuff, take any spell in the game, and just actually
like Rhythm happens.
Cast 4 times. Like we talked about, Fireball turns into meteor.
Polymorph turns into a stampede of animals.
Yeah.
It just turns into like what
the summoning spells turn into something completely different. Wall of Force. When there's 4 Wall of Forces, you have enough to effectively make a mini force cage.
I mean, even a simple spell like Hypnotic Pattern, the fact that you can like machine gun hypnotic patterns at your enemies, it's like, I got 3 of them, but 2 of them didn't get hit. Well, I'll also cast Hypnotic Pattern and see if I can get the last 2. Okay. I think this is an S tier group.
I think
its weaknesses are made up for by how powerful it gets. Dangerous from levels 1 to like 3, I think is when wizards are generally really squishy. I'm not gonna lie, I have a wizard at my table. He's been taken out of combat more than any other player at my table. It's not getting a 0 when somebody breathes on him. But we've hit level 6, and suddenly he's starting to like blast things out of the sky and all sorts of cool stuff. But those first few levels are when it's going to be real dangerous. But the rest of the campaign, S tier.
Yeah, I think barring the really, really gut punch, there's no magic allowed here. And even then, I think the anti-magic field situation, the wizard party almost is best equipped to handle it in a non-standard way. They're going to have to figure out a way to save it before they can go into it. But that's the whole thing. I do think that maybe catching them unprepared, it's like 4 super geniuses that are always watching the future. It's really hard to catch this group unprepared.
And the thing is, like, we're talking about all pillars of play. Obviously, we've mentioned a lot that in combat they can do unbelievable shenanigans. But when you talk about 4 of the same spell, it's like if you have 4 suggestions, or even somebody using the cantrip friends is not usually the good option. You can get your way through social encounters by just having friends and then leaving before. Like, you can use all of your social magic to figure it out. And exploration, you got spells for that too. You could use Arcane Eye, and now you have a scout.
Well,
My experiment
for that too.
Right.
will succeed.
With the all wizard party, you have a spell for every situation. And you're gonna have it because between the 4 of you, someone's gonna have it.
Stay
Like,
close
if I'm
and
a
you will
diviner,
live.
I'm working, I might have a few battlefield control spells, but then I'm going to have like a ton of useful utility spells to help out with exploration or maybe even social encounters or whatever. Like, I feel like one wizard is going to be utility, one is going to
Whatever would you do without me?
one is like, and you can still mix and match them.
Okay, we only talked about the illusions.
There are still so many places for us to explore.
Overlapping fields of illusions, combined with mind control magic, combined with actual, like, imagine what you could do by using spells like telekinesis, wall of force, Bigby's hand, and animate objects in tandem with illusions.
I'm just thinking like,
Yeah,
like 4 major images
Yes.
is something. 4 minor illusions is something.
Yep.
Minor illusion. You can create a smell, a sound, or a vision. You can do all 3.
yeah, you got it all.
You can
Everyone hop in!
Cantrips, all the different ways.
Make yourselves at home!
All the
Right here. Emerge. Right here. I'm always watching. Right now. Emerge. Right now.
Animal hypostasis emulation!
There is no escape.
The Temple of Wisdom! Committed to memory!
Inazuma shines eternal.
Animo Test 6308. Enhanced Animo Mod. Hey!
A sight to behold. Emerge. Right now. Illusion shattered.
I would just have to go with it. Like you said.
It would be if you would really, as a DM, you would want to work with it. And I think that if I was DMing it, I think the rival wizard guild is perfect. And make it like that back and forth. The rival wizard guild, the political intrigue, the whole thing, yeah. Or if you wanted to one of it, with the other antagonist figures. The wizards versus the nightmares.
I mean, luckily, the wizards are the best equipped to not get devoured in one.
What if it started out as Wizard Bureau of Investigations, following mysteries that are all being orchestrated by
Stop telling me to start running. I'm ready. That was my dream game.
that is a cool game. That is, and like, imagine like all the wizards in like the invest, like they've all got like the glasses. They show up, and it is kind of like Wizard X-Files versus. Yeah, making that.
If you played around with certain devices, or if you thought this was really cool, as cool as we think it is, please tell us about it in the comments below.
The videos that we create on our channel are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the work that we do here on YouTube and you want to get onto our Patreon-only Discord server and talk to us about your favorite Ball Wizard Party concepts, follow the links in the description below.
And if you want to check us out playing multiple different classes, you can check out our campaign on Twitch. You can find all the previous episodes right up over here.
And we got plenty more tier rank.
We have OJ and Waddy.
What the hell? He's making a bee.
What are you doing?
Why is he making a bee?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Waddy, I don't know why it says OJ plays tough. It's hella funny, don't lie.
Dojo Waddler at home.
Waddy, I'm not even able to follow him.
But I think he's like the sword fighter.
He said he's making these, yeah, but he went wrong for some reason. Because he doesn't he do what? Hey yo, yeah, that's gonna be a minute here.
Oh, he's going for the shuriken. He's not going for the what is it with the tornado? He's going for the shuriken.
Wait, what
is
did
the
he do?
zoner version.
That bee is just worse Link. It's literally just worse Link.
The sword fighter is not worse Link.
Yes, he is.
Ow. I can't wait for him to clickbait this Wii sword fighter. I want a logo with all Wii sword fighter. Oh, he did wrong.
Yo,
Why did not go Wii sword fighter for C? He was so scared.
he doesn't like the
I mean, I don't think so.
He should be sword fighter then.
Sure, I should go Wii sword fighter for C.
Alright, so.
There is no escape.
Emerge. Right here. Stand clear.
Here I say he loves him. He loves him. Oh! Fuck the bat! He's in his head. He just knows.
He's dead.
He's so dead.
I don't know what the hell Waddy's doing.
Oh, wow.
OJ, he just. I guess he is in love with Uppy right now. I want him to love
He's got like all the
That's 5 minutes, like he said.
He went with the side team power thrust.
Yeah,
And the side
this
team
is
and
fucking
the power,
annoying.
power thrust. This is like
He's
Bayonetta.
dead.
It's like Bayonetta 2. Yeah,
Better
not the
Bayo.
game.
Better Bayo.
Yeah, better Bayo.
Oh, good stall.
Oh wow, that's good.
Yeah.
That's. Oh!
Yes,
He's
yeah.
alive.
OJ, I tell him every fucking time we play, when you get a roll reverser, don't swing always.
So. Oh, what the hell?
What is this?
Oh, it's gravity. Gravity on Mike? Wait.
Illusion shattered.
Absorption test.
It's gotta be racially
I see
charged.
everything.
This has gotta be racially charged. Okay, sure, this is Ramadan. I can't tell. Hey, Gravity, how's your
Everyone hold hands.
What is fucking wrong?
I see everything.
No, Dan gave it to him. That's dodging, bro. You always have an excuse. Oh, I have a wedding. Oh, I have a party. Oh, my girlfriend. Bro, you need to play Smash Bros. Yeah, we can watch December Sword game where they did nothing for 20 seconds. I'll put that if you want to. Yeah, dude. What the hell? That was go. That's crazy. Alright, fought for you. Look, put it on speaker. I want to talk about it. Oh. Oh, it's what is he telling you to do?